Okay, so, you sent over a bunch of stuff about Pi Network, and one thing that really sort of kept jumping out at me was this whole concept of a liveliness check.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it sounds kind of sci-fi, doesn't it? Like
Sure.
something out of Blade Runner.
Right.
But for our listeners today, we're going to deep dive into what exactly this liveliness check is within Pi Network and
Right.
why it seems to be such a crucial part of what they're doing, how it works in practice when you actually encounter it, and then, why it's something that you as a Pi user or someone interested in Pi should actually pay attention to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Pi Network, obviously, with their aim to bring cryptocurrency to the masses,
Yeah.
through mobile phones, they've made this liveliness check a very fundamental part of that process.
Okay.
And yeah, the material you sent over is a really good foundation for understanding what can seem like a bit of a mysterious process at first.
Okay, so let's jump straight into it then. What is the Pi Network liveliness check in sort of layman's terms?
Well, put simply, it's a very important step in Pi Network's Know Your Customer or KYC process.
Right.
Um, and you can think of KYC as a way for online services to verify the identity of their users, much like a bank would ask you for your ID.
Mm-hmm.
The liveliness check specifically is about making sure that the person behind an account is a real, unique individual
Okay.
and not a bot or a computer program pretending to be human or someone creating multiple fake accounts.
Gotcha. So it's really about verifying that you're a real person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how does Pi Network actually go about doing that? Like, what do you as a user actually experience when you have to go through a liveliness check?
So typically when it's your turn to do the check, the Pi Network app will ask you to use your phone camera.
Okay.
And usually this involves either taking a selfie or performing a very simple action.
Mm.
We're talking about things like blinking your eyes, nodding your head slightly, or just turning your face from side to side.
Okay.
The crucial thing here is the action. It's not enough to just upload a picture.
Mm-hmm.
The movement is really what confirms that there's a live person interacting with the device at that moment.
Right. So it's the real-time element of it that makes it a liveliness check.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So why is Pi Network making this a mandatory step for everyone? I mean, what's the big deal?
Well, that's a really insightful question, and it gets to the heart of Pi Network's mission to be accessible.
Okay.
When you aim to be open to everyone, you also open yourself up to potential fraud.
Right.
One specific type of threat they're trying to prevent is called a Sybil attack.
Okay.
Now imagine someone creating thousands or even millions of fake accounts.
Yeah.
They could then hoard all the Pi rewards, unfairly taking away from genuine users.
Right. So it's kind of like a digital handshake proving you're a real person, not a bot army or something.
Exactly. It's a key defense mechanism to ensure fairness and the integrity of the entire Pi Network community. If a huge chunk of the pie was being accumulated by fake accounts, it would ultimately devalue the currency for everyone who's genuinely participating.
Makes sense. And I know there's this sort of big development on the horizon with Pi, which is the mainnet launch.
Yeah.
How does this liveliness check kind of fit into that bigger picture?
Yeah, so the mainnet launch is essentially when the Pi you've been mining on your phone will transition to the Pi blockchain.
Okay.
You can think of it as a secure, transparent digital ledger
Right.
and finally become truly usable.
Okay.
And here's where it gets interesting. Completing the full KYC process, which includes this liveliness check, to verify that you are a real person is absolutely essential for your Mind Pi to actually make that leap onto the mainnet.
So if you've been, diligently mining Pi every day, but you haven't gone through this liveliness check process, what happens then?
Simply put, your Pi coins will remain locked within the app.
Okay.
They won't be able to move onto the blockchain, and you won't be able to use them for any transactions or within the Pi ecosystem once the mainnet goes live. So it's a critical step to unlock the value you've been accumulating.
Okay, so this is clearly something that if you're involved in Pi Network, you need to sort of get on top of. So let's talk about the actual how-to here. How do you actually go about completing a liveliness check? What are the sort of concrete steps involved?
Sure. So the process itself is designed to be very user-friendly.
Okay.
First thing you'll want to do is make sure you have the most up-to-date version of the Pi Network app installed on your phone.
Okay.
Then, within the app, you'll need to navigate to the KYC section.
Mm-hmm.
This is typically found either in your profile settings or somewhere in the main menu.
Okay. And once you've found that KYC section.
Once you're there, the app will basically guide you through the specific steps for the liveliness check.
Okay.
It will prompt you to either take a selfie or perform a specific action using your phone's front-facing camera.
Right.
Now, it's really important to pay close attention to the on-screen instructions.
Mm-hmm.
If it asks you to blink,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you actually blink clearly.
Right.
If it asks you to turn your head slightly, do just that.
Okay.
Once you've completed the requested action, you'll submit your verification directly through the app.
And then it's just a waiting game.
Yeah, pretty much. Once you submit your verification,
Yeah.
the Pi Network team or their designated KYC service provider will review it.
Okay.
This review process can take some time, so you'll need to periodically check back within the app for updates on the status of your KYC and liveliness check.
So patience is a virtue here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so are there any sort of insider tips that you can share to help people kind of ace this liveliness check on their first attempt?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few straightforward things that can significantly increase your chances of a successful verification.
Okay.
First and foremost, make sure you have good lighting.
Okay.
Try to be in a well-lit area so your face is clearly visible to the camera.
Makes sense.
Secondly, give your phone's camera lens a quick clean.
Uh-huh.
You'd be surprised how much a little smudge can blur an image.
Yeah, good point.
Also, pay very close attention to the specific action the app asks you to perform.
Okay.
If it says blink, make sure you give a clear, distinct blink.
Right.
Follow the directions precisely.
Gotcha.
Also, make sure you have a stable internet connection when you're submitting your verification.
Uh-huh.
This will help ensure a smooth upload and avoid any potential issues.
Okay.
And finally, keep it simple.
Okay.
Avoid wearing hats, sunglasses, or anything else that might obscure your face.
Right.
The goal is a clear, unobstructed view of your face.
Okay, that all makes sense. But what if someone does run into a problem? What are some common issues people might encounter with the liveliness check, and what are the typical fixes?
Sure, it's not uncommon for users to experience a few minor hiccups along the way.
Uh-huh.
One common issue is blurry images, which can often lead to a rejected submission.
Okay.
If this happens, the best course of action is to simply retake the selfie in better lighting, or try to hold your phone a bit steadier.
Right.
Another frequent issue is a rejected submission for not following the action correctly. If this occurs, the app should ideally provide you with some feedback.
Uh-huh.
So review that feedback carefully, make the necessary adjustments. Maybe the blink wasn't clear enough or the head turn wasn't sufficient.
Yeah.
And then try submitting again.
Okay. And what about if there's any technical problems with the app itself? I mean, apps can be kind of temperamental sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. If you experience technical issues with the Pi Network app, such as crashes or glitches during the liveliness check process,
Yeah.
a good first step is to try restarting the app.
Okay.
If the problem persists, you might need to consider uninstalling and then reinstalling the app.
Right.
And if you've tried those steps and are still encountering difficulties, the best thing to do is reach out to Pi Network's official support channels for assistance.
Okay, great. So we've talked about, what the liveliness check is, why it's so important for the Pi Network ecosystem, how to actually do it successfully. But let's kind of bring it back to you, the listener. Why should you care about this beyond just, getting access to your mind, Pi?
Yeah, that's a really important point to underscore. The liveliness check isn't just some bureaucratic hurdle you have to jump over.
Right.
It's actually a fundamental component in ensuring the long-term viability and fairness of the entire Pi network.
Yeah.
When you consider that there are over 65 million active users around the world,
Wow.
you start to understand the sheer scale of this community.
Yeah.
This verification process is absolutely crucial for maintaining a secure and equitable environment for everyone involved.
Right. And what does it really mean to kind of fully participate in the Pi network down the line, once mainnet is up and running?
So once the mainnet launches and you've successfully completed KYC, including the liveliness check, your Pi will transition to the blockchain, and you'll then be able to actually transfer and trade your Pi coins.
Okay.
But it goes beyond just trading.
Right.
The longer-term vision for Pi Network includes the development and use of decentralized applications, or dApps.
Okay.
These are basically apps built on the Pi Network, which could offer a wide range of potential utilities, from marketplaces to social platforms.
So it's not just about, holding on to a digital currency. It's about potential sort of real-world applications and uses.
Exactly. And if we kind of zoom out a little bit and look at the broader implications, particularly for regions like Africa, where mobile phone penetration is very high, Pi Network's mobile-first approach, and by extension, this relatively accessible liveliness check process, represents a significant step towards greater financial inclusion.
Right.
It's about potentially bringing digital currency and its associated benefits to a wider segment of the population.
That's a really interesting point about kind of opening up access in parts of the world where, maybe traditional financial systems are harder to access.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the liveliness check, what's the kind of core message you want listeners to take away?
Well, the key takeaway is this. If you are involved in Pi Network, completing the liveliness check is absolutely essential if you want to fully participate in the ecosystem and ultimately gain access to the Pi coins you've been mining.
Okay.
It's not just a random security measure. It's a foundational step that helps ensure the security, fairness, and overall integrity of this rapidly growing Pi community.
Right. It's about, proving you're a real individual contributing to a real network.
Precisely. And considering this global scale and mobile-first approach, it kind of prompts a fascinating question.
Okay.
What broader impact might such accessible digital currencies and verification methods have on the future of financial systems? Particularly for those populations who are currently underserved by traditional financial institutions.
Right.
It's certainly something worth considering.
Yeah, it's a big question for sure. Thanks for coming on the show today.
My pleasure.
This has been really insightful.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see everyone next time.
See you later.
Bye.